right, gang, welcome to the podcast. We had a week off last week. Kate and I were in Medellin. We learned how to say it right while we were there. When you read the word, it looks like Medellin, but it's Medellin is how it is pronounced. So we spent a week in Medellin at BioAccelerator, and we got stem cell treatments, amongst other things. So what I really liked about BioAccelerator and their whole philosophy is this very holistic philosophy. And it reminded me a lot of what we're doing here at the gym in a lot of ways. So we have the physical therapy, we have the barbell side, we have the nutrition side, and the CrossFit side. And at BioAccelerator, they have a team of doctors, and they have a whole holistic kind of approach. They have a nutrition coach. They have a physical therapy team that they work with, very similar to us. It's not BioAccelerator. They have one that they're sending to people. So we're being paced through physical therapy. And really the whole week, we're there for 6 days. For 4 days leading up to actually getting the stem cell treatments, we were in like hyperbaric chambers, getting IV vitamins, doing the physical therapy, doing a variety of different treatments to really prep our body and make it as healthy as possible before, they went ahead and they drove in those stem cells into the joints and the areas that were affected on us. And I just thought the whole approach was really cool. We won't be able to feel the full effects of, the actual stem cells for a little while, but the overall experience I thought was really cool. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I was just thinking it was almost like a 2-to-1, like twice the time was spent outside the actual procedures that we had done, probably even more like 3 or 4-to-1, that taking care of ourselves, helping us take care of ourselves to prep our body to make sure it's strong. And that started months and months before we even went.
Yep.
We had phone calls with the nutrition coach, and I was honestly trying to cancel it because I'm like, what can I learn from her? And
same with the physical therapy.
Yeah,
because we're like, we have that at our gym. We don't need to get that there.
Yeah.
And then we ended up adding it back on.
Yeah. But I'm really glad we did it all. And it's really got me thinking about, how we live our life as a whole, and really how I've kind of what angle I've come at nutrition for so long, and how I want that to change, and how I want my own process. I'm evolving, I'm changing. I've been more intuitive, but really just making these changes. They focus a lot on just well-being in general. And they ask you about your entire day. Like, what is your day like when you go to work? When you how much time do you spend at work? How much time do you take care of yourself? Outside of that, do you meditate? Do you do all these practices? And they think a lot about nourishment and food from a mental well-being stance. So it was really cool to kind of hear that. They're like, yes, we want you to refrain from alcohol. We want you to manage a diet that is low in inflammation. So they really like you to avoid gluten, dairy, alcohol, anything that can just cause any sort of inflammation. But they're like, hey, if it stresses you out more to not have a glass of wine and you're thinking about that glass of wine all day, just have the glass of wine. If you really love cheese and you want to enjoy cheese, have a little bit of cheese. Brandon was struggling with the red meat recommendation. It's once or twice a week. And we're talking with the sports physician when we're leaving, and he's like, a good steak can be so good for your body. So it's just a way of thinking hey, try to move towards these more healthy, fresh foods and more variety, where I've been kind of I've been taking clients to intuitive eating after a month or two, but I want to start doing this from the get-go, focus on eating a variety of foods, not just foods that meet the macros.
Yep.
And that tends to kind of box you in no matter how hard you try. You've got those quick meals that okay, chicken, rice, green beans, bam, that fits lunch. So then you start doing chicken, rice, green beans. every day for months. And that's not healthy because you're not getting a variety of food. And I think that creates a lot of intolerances that we'll have too, where you're just not having different types of um, foods and your body becomes intolerant to some of them. And then also, there's no way you can get in all your vitamins and minerals that way as well. So it's really got me thinking. I'm really grateful that I did the nutrition consultation and the physical therapy. You can always take away something from a different point of view. And it was really neat to have that point of view and just see how they kind of approach like wellness as a culture compared to us. And just even ideas of how I go through my day. Like instead of making myself so uncomfortable rushing to work at 7:45, even pushing back 15 minutes, getting here at 8, easing into my day a little bit so I'm a little more comfortable. That's going to go a long ways to help me sleep at night. And since I've been back, I've been able to sleep a lot more. I'm sure the stem cells help with that, and they have us on some homeopathic remedies, and both of us are on the a remedy that's supposed to help with stress and sleeping. But I think it's really how we set up our culture. So, and it's really got my wheels spinning on the way we do everything. And I'm going to segue into kind of like our topic for today, but part of that, not only how I nourish my body, but then got me thinking about, okay, how do I help my clients a little better? And then how do I go through my workday? How do I set up my career just differently right now to create less stress? Because, really diving in with all these physicians there and they're like, well, your day seems like you set it up great. I'm like, I know. I just think that I carry these old beliefs and thought systems that keep me stressed out. And I'm my own barrier right now to like, if I'm going to feel a little better and sleep a little better and feel a little more recovered, that's that last little piece. And I think I'm creating that. So thinking about like maybe carrying a little bit smaller client load, like how much income do I need to make versus how much am I just driving myself to that might almost drive like extra spending. And this is a topic that comes up with my clients a lot too. And this is a question that we keep getting asked from getting these treatments done. They're very expensive.
Yeah, that's the elephant in the room. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, we went down to Columbia. There's 3 NFL football players, the UFC, current flyweight champions down there, like these high-end athletes or some like older adults who have some issues. And then, we're kind of outliers in the middle. There was a couple other people around our age who had, there's a guy,
like normal people.
Yeah, he wanted to get back to surfing and he was banged up.
Yeah.
And for Kate and I, like we want to keep doing CrossFit and doing these running races and continue to do that and thrive for a long time. So that was our motivation behind it. And I had researched it and for the last 2 years, we saved up money to do that. So always the elephant in the room, when doing this is like, people are like, that's probably out of my price range to do something like that. And for a lot of people, and for most of my life, it certainly was, but your financial health does play a role in your physical health because, the level of stress, and even things you can do to take care of yourself. Like there's a lot of things that all of that is interwoven and having discipline, with your body, like, making sure you're getting up and running and doing, coming to CrossFit class, all of that, it can tie in with like your financial health as well. When Kate and I got together, she'd actually, I hate to, throw you under the bus here, but you had ran into some financial issues in your mid-20s.
Yeah, I had to let my house go. Yep. Basically, I tried to sell my house.
It was during the 2008 crash.
I bought it with someone else. Yep. I tried, like we broke up and I was trying to just kind of make it on my own. And it was probably just a little too much. And I was too proud to admit that. So
you lost some income during that time, as all trainers did during that big downturn. And where I was just going with that is, so you got yourself into some trouble, but by the time I had met you, you got your income back up. We're in our late 20s at the time, and she was already very financially disciplined. Now, I wasn't a big spender. I was like a guy who lived on couches and as long as I, had a Wi-Fi and could go to the gym. I was good to go. But when Kate and I met and we pretty quickly started living together, right away, we met with a financial advisor. Immediately, I started saving money and paying down my credit card debt that I still had from college and my student loans. So immediately, I went on the attack with that.
And you weren't happy about like paying into an IRA. And I remember you were
Yeah,
mad. You're
yeah.
like,
So
I make like, I think you had made a little less than $35,000.
yeah, I was
at
making
that
about
time.
35K a year, 35 to 40, right around there is where I got to. And again, guys, this is not like the first year I was in this. I'm pushing around 30 right at this time, and so I'm like, okay, I'm going to stay disciplined. We're going to do this, and we continued to do that. Even when our income started rising, we maintained our cost of living. And didn't get a house until I think I was around 34. You were 35, is when we bought our first house. But
we had already had Oscar by that time.
Yep, we had already had Oscar. I drove, old used vehicles. So we really made sure that a certain percentage of our income was always being saved. And a big part, like people ask, they want to know the how and the why behind the gym. Like, how did you get here? Again, in a lot of different circles, like what we're doing here is not a huge deal. And like, we're around people like that weekend where like, what we're doing is a blip on the map. But in our industry, like we're really outkicking our coverage, where like an average nutrition coach is probably making about a quarter of the money that you're making a year. The average CrossFit gym is a fifth of the size of this operation here, if not smaller. We have 15 employees here. Most CrossFit gyms don't have any employees outside of the owner, and then they're getting volunteer coaches and things like that. So what got us here, though, in a big part, other than, we have fantastic coaches and trainers and good people working here, but was financial discipline to save the money each step of the way to, keep replacing equipment, not padding our pockets, paying coaches to stick around, to grow the membership. But then in the end as well, when we ran into a really tough spot, we had the money to put a down payment on a facility like this where we were going to get ran out of our old spot. That might have meant moving, out into the suburbs or into a much smaller area where there's no way we could have brought everyone with us. So that financial discipline is what allowed us to execute on these steps every step of the way. And again, that ties into your total health,
right.
As well. And, we got to talking about this and we were like, I don't know if we want to do a podcast on this, because a lot of people who listen to this, they're looking for fitness and wellness advice. And after I thought about it for a few minutes, because you're like, yeah, I think we should do it. I'm like, you know what? The longer we do this, we're looking at total wellness. And I don't know, this is like going to be a big topic all of the time, but my friend out in Granville, Corey Gregory, he talks about this topic very consistently because
like
he broke generational. He was poor. He was a coal miner. Like his whole bloodline was poor. And a big thing that he wanted to do was break this like generation after generation of like poverty in his family. And he's made a lot of, he founded Muscle Farm and he's done some really cool things. And I take a lot from that and certain things. And I'm like, you know what? It's all part of the
I absolutely. I mean,
yeah.
This is a conversation I have with my clients all the time. Like, hey, you need to take care of yourself. Well, that takes resources. It takes time and it takes money. And absolutely it does. But, also I feel like we are very qualified to speak about this because we did not come from any sort of money. So
Sure.
I paid my way through college. You graduated with a lot of loans. Our parents helped us out where we could. They did a great job, but we did not. both of us grew up very similarly, not with a lot of money. I wasn't.
Our parents are working class.
Yes.
She grew up on
Yeah.
a dairy farm. My dad was an
Yeah.
electrician. My mom stayed home with us.
My mom is a teacher.
Yep. Her mom
Yeah.
was a teacher as well. So like,
So just so you know, I
yeah.
feel like
Yeah.
we've kind of built this up where, like, again, I think what happens is we box ourselves in. Well, hey, and when I was in college, it was my junior year. I was studying exercise science. We had 3 professionals come in, and none of them made over $22,000. Did I want to leave that profession? Hell no. Part of me was like, kind of like, well,
I still don't know why they brought
I know.
those 3 people in to
I
talk
think
to
you can,
guys.
there could be more opportunity here because I was already making more money at the time. I was working through college and I was working about 30 hours a week. And I remember I was like on pace, or I had just made $28,000 the year before. So that stuck in my head. Well, hey, I'm not going to let this deter me from what I'm passionate about. And I just think there's opportunity anywhere, and we are the ones that hold ourselves back. So, and I like to kind of just get people's wheels turning about how like you can create that those resources in your own life to take care of your health a little better, and whatever that means for you. Some of us just need to slow the fuck down. Literally slow the fuck down. And I had a client I was meeting with, and she's a professional, she's a lawyer. She's very, very smart. And we were talking about her stress level. And I love this client. And I was like, hey, you didn't have to do this, this, and this. And she's like, I did. And I'm like, but you didn't. It's okay. It's done now. But we all have choices. We all have decisions to make. And I think, I just kind of did a little bit of research, just kind of like on some bullet points. It was already kind of things that we were doing. But part of my motivation, like maybe similar to Corey Gregory, I don't think my mom listens to this, but I hope she's not offended if I say this. I love my mom. A lot of my motivation as an adult was to not be in the same financial situation as my parents. My mom is a big spender. She's a ton of fun, good time Nancy, but we did not have the money to spend that like we did. She would have 10 credit cards at any given point. I remember just a lot of fighting in my household about money, and it just makes me feel bad. Like, and that's, I mean, any consistent fighting isn't great, but that I just didn't want that to be an issue in our house with our kids. And I think step one, and I'm going to kind of go through some different steps, but this one I know I have like for sure the number one across a lot of different sites that I came across: live below your means. So I think this is in the Midwest. This is something we don't do. Our culture is like, who has the biggest house, the best car, this, and this.
Have a big boat parked in the driveway.
Yeah.
You ever, when you're driving out in the country and you just see the big house and the big ass boat in the driveway too.
Right. Now listen, we have a decent house now and we have decent cars, but Brandon was driving the shittiest pickup truck I've ever seen for a long time when we were dating. We lived in crappy apartments. We didn't get it. We didn't say we have to have a house at this point or this point in our relationship. We waited until we could. And I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just telling you how we did it. But I think a lot of people live above their means. So that means like your like necessary like income, like whether it's rent, it's your mortgage, it's your car payments, your cell phone, this and that should allow you to, whatever that is, that should allow you some freedom to have opportunities, travel still, enjoy yourself, whatever is fun for you. That might be, whatever it is. It doesn't have to be. It's travel for us, but it should allow you to have some freedom there. And then it should also allow you to have money to put into savings. So number one, live below your means. I know there's some stats out there with what percentage of income you should be below. And I just kind of took some of our personal stats. I think it should be like 35% of your income or lower. We tend to be about like 20% of our income or lower. And we like to keep it there. I mean, you guys, if you follow us, we travel a lot. That's what we really find important to us. And I kind of just did even like some calculations because I find this stuff really interesting. I kind of just love this stuff. So we spend 15% of our income on travel, which is not far behind just like our necessity cost. So that's super important to us.
And again, now this is something we built into. This was like a 0% at one point for us, because that is a added on thing,
Yes.
to like,
Yes.
once you have the money to do it, like, that is not like, before we do that, we're saving money, 15% added into travel on, when I'm making 35, 40 grand a year.
Yes.
It's a 0% on that. And
where we built into that. Like,
we had to build into that over a long period of time. But yeah, I think, at any point in time, you want to find that level where you're living below your means as fast as you can. I had a few years where I was just trying to get to where I could, make minimum payments and things like that. And I lived that way for, 5 years out of college, where I was just trying to find my way with the training and the coaching and all of that, where a lot of people, it would have been time to give up and find a real job, because this wasn't a job yet.
And if like, to that point, if
Yep.
you aren't living below your means, think of ways you can. That might not always be cutting back on spending, that in like with what I was kind of reading about, you don't have to necessarily go that route, but you might have a side hustle that you start to do, or like, have a little bit of a secondary income for yourself if you don't want to cut back.
Sure.
But I think most of us probably just need to cut back on spending.
That's the easiest way is it's like people who are, you're trying to run off weight. It's a lot. You can get addition by subtraction a lot faster than you can by
Yes, that's a very good point.
torturing yourself,
Yes.
through extra cardio after
Yes.
workouts. It's a lot more effective to eat
Yes.
less.
Yes, and that's even a lot of thoughts that I was having. Just not that I'm working a ton, but just the pace that I work at isn't real comfortable, and it kind of creates this stress.
Yep.
So I can absolutely cut back on spending. The first place I'm going to look is purchasing clothing, and I don't want to take away my travel, but that's something I don't need. I maybe go out to dinner once a week consistently. I probably don't need 20 outfits to do that. I need gym clothes.
So there's a great show, and what brought this whole thing up too, and we're kind of jumping all over the place, but it's a new Netflix series. So most of us have Netflix, here, or a lot of us do, is I think it's called Get Rich, but all it is the guy, he's a financial planner or advisor, and he's following like 5 couples. We just watched the first episode, but you can tell everyone's got a much different budget and things like that. But, there's a common theme is everyone is, there's a couple that, they have 25 grand a month to work with. They have a huge income, but they're spending 27K. And then you're just seeing like Amazon, like straight down their list. And so it's a really cool show. That show, I think, is a great resource as to what we're talking about, starting to budget, plan, dialing your spending, things like that. Here,
Yes.
I saw
So
I saw a note on there.
Step 1, spend less money.
Yep.
Step 2, set goals. So, this is as like, if you're alone, you're setting your goals. If you're with your partner, you live with somebody. Hey, what are our goals? What is important to us? Because that's where a lot of arguments begin and like never get sorted out. Travel is important to me. It's not quite as important to you. Now I think I've got you on it, but you're not as much of a spender. So I'll spend more, but then I'll keep working to make that up. So it doesn't really cause an issue. We do have separate accounts just because it's easier with the businesses, but, just setting goals and setting expectation, but also this creates dreams. So like, for some people that might be like boat people, a goal might be to own a house on a lake with a boat, setting aside money and thinking, okay, if we set aside this amount of money every month, we can do this in 10 years or 12 years. That's really, really motivating. And that's something that I really enjoy is like just setting goals and achieving them. And that's what we've always done financially.
That's how we did BioAccelerate.
Yeah.
It's an expensive trip, expensive to get the treatments. We started setting aside money for that 2 years ago. So we did that for 2 years. It was a fantastic experience, something very cool. Again, something that took discipline and a plan to execute on. It wasn't just like, I think too often, like you were talking to me about, earlier, like, hey, someone just pulled a trip on like, hey, we're going to Disney and we have to be in a house like now. It's like, if you had the discipline to wait for a house that's more in your range and, wait till it's warm out and maybe hit Kings Island for a weekend instead of Disney for a week, all of a sudden you've got this massive swing in cash and you're not stressed in financial turmoil. And honestly, like, you're not going to know the difference from a fun standpoint and all of that.
Yeah.
So it's
those
small
like
things like that.
Those like little tipping points I think are really important.
Yep.
And we are very thankful. Like Brandon said, I just feel really lucky to be here. And I think that's great. And I'm not trying to be a jerk, but I'm like, we didn't do this by luck. Like we blood, sweat, and tears all the way up through. And it's not like that much of a struggle, but we were disciplined in doing it. And if you walk through a house, it's a nice house, but it's not souped up to the nines. This was a renovation that we did for our bodies.
Yep.
And we could have taken that. We could have done it with the house. That's fine. But it's about that much. And people will do that all the time. You renovate your kitchen. I know if you're in UA or it's $100,000. I know that. So it's just all where you place importance, and it doesn't have to be either or. But like this year, we're probably not going to do like we set goals. Like my goal is to cut back on spending. I would love to do something with the house, but that's probably going to have to be next year where we get new countertops, and just waiting on that. So
eliminating debt. So that's a big one.
Eliminate debt. And then, you guys might have heard this. You always start with the smallest debt that you have, pay that off, and then work through your credit cards. Even something simple, like we got our tax returns. I'm like, you know what? I keep forgetting about these couches we bought from, and then we bought our couches from Value City. I don't go to and then that's great if you want to go to different like furniture stores, but little things like that we don't really care about. I paid those off. So that's just a little bit of debt. That's also going to free up some of our credit, improve our credit score. But so spend less than you earn, set goals, pay off your debt, have a savings plan. So a good rule of thumb is if you can set aside 5 to 10% of your income every month towards an emergency fund, and you want that emergency fund to be built up to last you 3 to 6 months. That's a good rule of thumb, just to kind of bulletproof your financial situation. Another one is to protect your income, plan for the worst. That's kind of like a little bit more of having the emergency fund, but just kind of think through different scenarios, which we do often. Like, we have this gym. We have a high overhead here with the gym that we just can't control. So, we're always kind of thinking, okay, well, and Brandon does a great job. I've learned a lot from him. Maybe I've taught him some of the personal finance, but in terms of a business finance, he keeps his gym account padded. And it's something that we've kind of argued about, but I really understand now. He wants to allow for a huge catastrophe with the building. He wants to allow for paying all the coaches for at least a month. If
that's what saved our coaching staff during COVID. So had I not had the account in a healthy spot and like basically have like a cutoff line where like if we hit that, we're making emergency cuts to the way this business is ran. Had we not had that, within a month, I would have had to have cut half the staff, and I was able to pay all our full-time coaches their base salary straight through, the 2 months we were shut down. But without that, we would have, it wouldn't have been, there's no way we would have been able to do that. So,
and that helped you out with like other loans because you kept that staff too.
Yes.
You weren't aware.
Then that actually like,
it's like karma.
Yes. It paid off with like the PPP loans and things like that. Whereas if you laid everyone off during that time, you weren't able to get those loans. So that financial discipline with the business really served us well, where it's not a roller coaster of feast or famine all the time. Having that financial discipline within the company helps us keep this ship chugging along. It's it's a challenge. It's very nuanced, whether it's your personal or business finance. Uh, you're either spending too much or sometimes too little, and
Yeah,
you've,
we have months, and we kind of prepare for that.
yep,
Like the last 2 months, I mean, we had travel a week. We were back for 3.5 weeks, and then a week.
yeah,
So not only do we want to save money, but we're really trying to spend more time with our children
hmm
too. And it's hard to keep that balance all the time. It's always a little off one way or the other. But um,
I think a big thing that isn't talked about often, and I think anyone who does business with me, especially from like a business to business deal, neither of us are cheap with anyone. Whether it's contractors, whether it is people, we're not like, oh, can you hook us up? Can you get a deal? Um, if we're gonna save money, it's gonna be on spending and things like that. When you do good business to business and things like that, they're coming back to you and they're spending money with you. You're spending money with them, and then we all feed each other.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
and then if there's places where we can save that person some money here or there, that's great. But when we all just feed each other, it all works. Where is a huge pet peeve of mine is being extremely thrifty and cheap with everyone your friends and things like that. And then you've got, you know, the nicest car in the lot, the coolest pair of shoes, and then you're trying to get a free dinner at the restaurant. Um,
yeah.
I don't think anything pisses me off more than to see people doing that. And
Yeah.
hey, it's a personal preference. If you want to have a cool watch and cool stuff that you're wearing, and
You,
then
you know that
and then your buddy who's doing your concrete driveway, you're trying to get him to do what it costs, and he's not going to make a dime off of it, and he's not going to be able to feed his family. I think you're an asshole. But that's just my kind of I'm going on a little getting
well,
on a
that was
soapbox.
actually a
So
point. It
I think
was
that's really helped our business in
yeah.
general because we,
You put it out, and people watch
yes.
how you are with other people. And there was actually a point on here. It was interesting. It was like, um, it was give generously was a point on, and I can't remember. It was some financial resource website, and they speak to this. They said, you might think, how is this going to help my financial situation? But it changes your relationship with money.
Mm-hmm.
And when you change your relationship with money, you don't kind of hoard it so much. Our whole financial system is set up on kind of creating this flow. So, like, if we all just stop spending, our economy crashes, right?
Yep.
So it is not that you want to overspend and be in debt. That doesn't work well either. Our economy is set up on a healthy, each family having a healthy financial position where they don't have a ton of debt. They spend at certain times, they save at certain times, but that's how our economy works, even just like on a macro level. But then and on a micro level, I really notice, like, if I start to kind of feel cheaper, like even just be cheap a little bit, like my friends will kind of feel that too and just be like, oh, and I don't ever want that. So we talk a lot. It's difficult sometimes because we take these big trips and big groups, and sometimes it's not always fair. But I would always rather, like, hey, that wasn't quite fair. It's okay. It'll all work out on some, like, I just kind of believe in like the universe kind of working things out. If we take a hit here, and we eat it, just kind of keep that in mind. We'll be a little more careful next time, but it all works out. Relationships are much more important than money.
100%. That's why whenever, we go to our we have a friend or a client here at the gym, we go to their restaurant or their distillery or their brewery or whatever it is, we're going to order a nice dinner. We're going to order good drinks. We're going to tip their bartenders big. And that extra $10 on the tip,
Yeah, I
and
noticed
paying
that.
them 25 to 30% on a tip rather than, the lower end, that's not affecting your livelihood or anything like
Not
that.
at
It
all.
never is. And going out and spending that little bit of extra money on at that dinner. But what it's doing is it's creating a good relationship, and you're a good client for them. They're going to be a good client for you. And whether or not they continue
Everyone remembers that.
yeah,
And
they're going to say, hey, that's where you should
do,
do, that's where you should do CrossFit. This is who you should do. Those are good, solid people. You know, they're good clients. So I think, you know, at the end, it's again, it's a very nuanced thing. You're looking at saving money, being financially disciplined. But I think, you know, when you really get to it too, like you do have to spend some money, and you're going to put your value, you're going to put the money that you have, your resources where you put your value. And if you value that product, spend money there, and eventually it's going to work its way back around to you. Even if it's not a reciprocal business, you'll be shocked at how, oh, I know that they do that. I make connections with people here every week. Hey, go talk to him. That's your guy for this construction project, or that's your guy for residential real estate. That's your guy for commercial real estate. All the time. But I do that with people who are doing good business. Yeah. They are good clients. They're good customers.
And we all feed each other. This just kind of goes along with just like overall like mental health too, and feeling good about like what you're doing for other people and that whole thing. Okay, so back onto the list. Invest your money. So not just into a savings account. Like you want to have an emergency fund that's easily accessible that you can get right now. So we have that in the savings. It kind of always burns my ass that we have it some in savings, but it's so easy to access. I know it's not getting any percentages on that, but that's the one account we're allowed to tap into for like our biannual property taxes, trips if we need to travel, that sort of thing. That's where we took our stem cells from. And then we have a money market. That is important to have, like more like, so that when we're talking about goals, short-term, mid, and long-term goals, you want to set up your accounts like that. So our savings account is a short-term, like, okay, I need this now. Our money market's like a mid-term. That's what was able to get us the gem. And that's important because it was earning 5 to 6% interest. Once that starts to get built up, you're starting to earn a significant amount of money on that interest.
The stock market doing well at that time helped.
Yeah.
So then, for the 5 years,
right,
you know, leading up to that, it certainly helped. And now the stock market's taken a dip. So you have some other factors at play when you're investing there. Those are typically pretty safe accounts. They're not ones that are always going to like knock it out of the water. If you probably keep money in there long enough, you're going to be in good shape. But
even so, these are conversations we have all the time. And I am always like, kind of setting goals for us, like, okay, we have this money market. Let's plan on not touching that for 10 years. That's our goal right now. And our goal is like in 10 years, if we have to live off that, we can for about 5 to 7. And then we have the long-term, the IRAs, the retirement. And you're feeding into each one of those, based off your age too. At the appropriate amount.
This is just our strategy too. This is you always talk
I'm
to
picking from like different. Yeah, we have a financial advisor.
Talk to a financial planner, a financial advisor. Like we are in not experts by any means in this, and there's a lot of different strategies, whether it's through real estate.
But these are some basics that I have found kind of across the board. Nothing's like really going to rock any boat, but just kind of like some just strategies, and then a good credit score is very, very important. What that does,
let you buy a building.
It allows your interest rates to be much, much lower. Whether like we're talking car insurance, whether we're talking a loan on a house, the money you borrow is cheaper, so that really matters. And I think the scores range from 300 to 800.
900,
I'm sorry, 300 to 850. 850, I think is. Okay. Yeah, I thought no, I think you're right. 900. I think there's like 1.5% of the population that's at 850. And we have pretty good credit scores too. We use our credit cards. We try to use those for travel,
Pay them off right away.
and that's something else. Like I try to be like kind of
We don't keep balances on them.
thrifty with like where we're always trying to get the Southwest Buddy Pass. So when we travel, like one of us can come for free, the companion pass. I'm always looking at his American Airlines credit card for like points. That's the business account, and being, thrifty there. Very good credit is considered to be like 740 to 799. And then just decent credit, 670 to 739. So just kind of understanding where you're at. I have a little app called Credit Karma.
Yeah, Credit Karma.
Yeah, I kind of check almost every day.
Yep.
And then one other one on here, if you do have a house, kind of having a plan to try to pay off your mortgage early. Now, this is something I always debate with my financial advisor.
That's controversial financial advice right there.
Well, this was also on another website, but money is cheap borrowed. That's not the necessary. That's why it's like number 10 on here. But what that does, anytime you pay off debt, it gives you more freedom. So if you're looking at that, if another opportunity arises, like Brayden has a buddy in Chicago that does investments into apartment buildings, that's going to free us up income every month we could put into now a fund that gives us more opportunity. So anytime you pay off debt, anytime you're living below your income and the more you save, you give yourself more opportunity. So we have a plan. I pay $1,000 more every month. I don't have to do that. That's something we could also taper back down to that necessity, but it will allow us to pay off our mortgage, 13 years early. So that's also going to just give us a lot more freedom to make different decisions at that time in our life. And that's, that's going to be at a time where our kids are getting older and we're just kind of probably reassess what we do. So this is big. I mean, I think for the younger population, this is big to just kind of get started in for your, like the mid 40s where we're at, for people to start thinking about like, what are your, like when your kids graduate, what are you going to do? How much longer do you want to work? What do you want your lifestyle to be like? And start creating that lifestyle. And you can. You can. So if, it should empower yourself to make the changes that you need to in your life to get there. And that's why I really try to do with a lot of my clients is just to see, even within their own current career, how much more flexibility they have. A lot of them, it's literally working a little less stress. And especially if they work for employers, trying to just get the job done in less time with less bullshit. And even me, I'm kind of on the opposite end of that, where I'm like, hey, if I need another client or two less and to enjoy my day and really be grounded and feel really present with myself, I'm going to start doing that. And I did some quick math and I'm like, okay, here's what I need to, where I would like to keep my income at. So this is about how much I need to work. And it's a lot less than I think I need to. And it's a lot more comfortable lifestyle for me to even take 15 or 20 more minutes here or there. That's going to make a significant reduction in my health or my stress. And here's another thought. I can work more. I can spend more money. That's creating a lot more work, which creates more stress. Where if I just worked a little less, I'd have worked a little less, spent a little less, had just could be more and be present more. I think that would really help my health. You can apply that to workouts. You can apply that to anything you're doing in life. So to the example of hey, I want to eat a little more to work out more. That's creating a lot of stress on your body. And then maybe you're a little injured more, and then you have to take care of yourself on the other side of that. So, and I'm even thinking about this. Maybe I could trade my weekly physical therapy appointments to bi-weekly, because sometimes even just having too many appointments to take care of myself stresses me out. So it just kind of really just analyzing my whole life balance and having time to just be, where I don't I might have an hour that I don't have assigned to meditation or shower or this, but I might come home and I'm like, whoa, it's such a nice day. I want to go get a flower and plant it at home, but I have the freedom to do that.
Yep.
and it allows you just to be more present and intuitive with your life.
I think that's a pretty good place to stop. And I think just in summary, these are just a couple basic, tools. Some people, like you said, need to simply spend less. At the end of the day, though, there's a lot of us, and I was in this situation for the first, basically 10 years of myself being in the workforce. Some of you guys need to make a little more money too. So you can have some money to spill over. This is kind of a weird topic, I think, that people on a fitness podcast might not have been expecting. But, at the end, I hope we got a few good tips out of it. And you can look at things, from a bird's eye view and see how this all ties together. Back on the fitness train next week. Catch you next time.